At 6:12 a.m., my doorbell camera caught a figure in a floppy sun hat, stepping onto my lawn with pruning shears. 30 seconds later, my solar cables were hanging like cut vines, wet with dew and twitching in the breeze. And by 3:07 p.m., a bright orange violation was taped to my door with an HOA email telling me to restore neighborhood aesthetics by removing non-compliant installations, meaning the panels I had fully permitted and inspected. And that was the morning I understood this wasn't about sunlight or rules. It was about power, and who thought they owned it. My name is Ethan Cole. I live on Cedar Ridge Crossing just outside Ashbury, North Carolina. The kind of cul-de-sac where every mailbox matches and the bylaws are thick enough to stop a door. The HOA president is Mark Pennington, who can turn quorum into a bedtime story. And the person who actually runs the block is Deborah Whitfield. Deb, red blazer. Pearl stud silver Lexus clipboard, like a badge. She's the one who counts your porch pumpkins and sends emails titled "Friendly Reminder" that feel like subpoenas. You know what I mean. I put the panels on because the roof begged for them, and the city offered a rebate. I'd be dumb to ignore. Permit-approved inspection. Signed off. I even sent the board a perfectly polite heads-up with photos, so no one could say. I hit a thing a week later. Deb waltzed into a meeting with glossy 8x10s of my roof circled in red and said the reflection blinded her while she gardened, and crows held strategy sessions on the shingles. The board voted 3-2 to review compliance, which is HOA for, we don't have a rule, but we wish we did. And 2 days after that, my camera caught her in that hat, with those shears making a neat little snip, like she was pruning a rose bush, yeah. That happened. I stood on my porch in socks with my coffee going cold and called non-emergency. Sergeant Blake rolled up, took one look at the dangling wires, and exhaled. Like a man who had seen this show. Before you got enemies? He asked, just one. I said. I pulled up the clip. He watched twice, gave a low whistle, and said, that's clear as day. We'll file it, but neighbor cases move when someone pushes. So I pushed in the boring ways that count my electrician. Monty capped everything safe and muttered that people treat electricity like a mood instead of math. And by sunset, the first orange violation was on my door for exterior wiring, visible from street. The wiring being Monty's safety cap. I snapped a photo, scanned it, and pinned it under a sticky note on my office corkboard that read "Guatives for future court." That night, between 9:40 and 11:56, my inbox filled with Deb's greatest hits, like a broken popcorn machine. Trash can facing wrong direction. Porch light. Lumen level too high. Unregistered vehicle in driveway, which was my antique F-100 with legal plates. I made a folder called Deb's Manifesto and slid them in. The next morning, my sprinkler timer was mysteriously off, and my side yard looked like a rice paddy. I fixed it in 2 clicks and promised myself I wasn't going to swing at every pitch, because that's how you lose the game. If you've ever lived under a homeowners association, you know there's theater in the bylaws, and Deb loves theater. She set out supermarket cookies, took the head chair at Mark's folding table like she'd been sworn in, opened with endanger property values 3 times in 60 seconds, then held her glossy photos like they were classified when she finished. I didn't give a speech. I slid a printed still across the table. 612 sun hat. Shears the cut, and the room went so quiet the fluorescent light hummed. Mark cleared his throat and said, "We will table this pending legal review. HOA code for, please let me go home." Deb's cheeks went the color of ripe tomato as I left. She hissed, "You are making a mistake." And I said, "Yeah, I made one letting you near my lawn, you." The neighborhood group chat started humming like a power line. Someone asked if anyone else felt static around my panels. Someone else typed about government EMPs. Deb marched door to door with a clipboard like she was running for city council. I made coffee and called my friend Talia Ruiz at the city, calm voice inspector's vest. A woman who has seen every illegal junction box known to man. She laughed the tired laugh and said she'd swing by just paperwork and a few lines on a map. The next morning at 10:05, a city truck parked at the curb, and Deb intercepted it halfway down the driveway like a monarch defending a gate. "You can't inspect my property without permission," she said. Talia smiled without warmth and tapped the shared maintenance easement. "Ma'am, you signed this." And 20 minutes later, she texted me from Deb's side yard. "Picture garden confirmed. Illegal tie in your permits. Are clean. She's been pulling power off the HOA irrigation circuit since 2019. And there it was, the twist. The person accusing me of danger was literally wired into the shared line, like a barnacle on a boat. Deb hates losing, so she staged a sidewalk protest at the entrance sign with a poster that said, "Protect our families," and a photo of my panels looking like a villain's lair attendant was Greg, her husband, their labradoodle, and a retiree who thought there'd be baked goods that night. Somebody carved a long white key smile into the door of my truck. My camera missed it by a foot. I added the photos to the file and reminded myself I liked judges more than fistfights then. Channel 12 called and wanted both sides at 11. I put on a clean shirt and practiced not sounding like a man about to yell on TV. While Deb arrived with a fresh blowout and a necklace the size of a small life preserver. She led with rogue experiments and children at risk. The microphone turned to me, and I didn't perform outrage. I showed the 612 clip, held up my permit, and let Talia explain the illegal tie-in. In everyday English, the audience could swallow without water. The segment ran under a banner that said, "HOA feud over solar sparks, showdown." And the internet did what it does. Muffins on my porch advice in my inbox. And then Deb's lawyer filed for a temporary restraining order that said I was harassing her and interfering with her utilities. Yeah, that happened too. The judge put a no-contact order in place until a hearing, which meant my wave to the camera when she paced had to stop. And every email and clip turned into evidence my lawyer Hannah labeled and tabbed until the chaos started to look like order. Meanwhile, the board's complaints shifted from me to her. Noise harassment, that labradoodle at 6 a.m. Mark called, sounding like a man with a sunburn. "We can't keep doing this," he said. "Bring your packet." So I brought a binder thick enough to stop a tractor, and we filled the garage with folding chairs and lukewarm coffee, and a plug-in TV balanced on a storage bin. Deb arrived with her own binder and a box of cookies arranged like exhibits. She started first because she always starts first. His system electrocuted my lawn. He's depressing property values. He's destabilizing the neighborhood. A woman in the second row snorted into her cup. When it was my turn, I asked to play 3 clips. Mark nodded, and I rolled them in order, like chapters. You can't unread. 6:12. The cut, 10:41 p.m. Her whispering at my side gate, "I will expose him at 18 a.m." Her kneeling over the sprinkler box in the shared strip where the conduit runs. The TV's little speaker crackled, the fluorescent hummed, and you could feel the room tip from maybe to. Yes. Talia handed over her inspection report with code sections and photos. Sergeant Blake confirmed the vandalism report number. Deb tried to rally with. He provoked me. His panels are reflective, and I said, "So is your SUV," which wasn't kind or cruel, just true enough to make the room exhale. Mark read the bylaws paragraph in 8-point font about willful property damage and misuse of HOA circuits being subject to fines, suspension of voting rights, removal from committees, referral to the city. And then he called the vote. Hands went up like wheat in wind. Unanimous immediate removal from every committee. Voting rights suspended for a year. Maximum fines, under nuisance, and vandalism. Mandatory referral to code enforcement for the illegal tie. And he wrote it. He stamped it, and Deb's clipboard slipped from her fingers and hit the concrete. With a crack that made everyone flinch, that was the moment the power changed hands without raising its voice. After that, the block went quiet. In a way you can hear, blinds stayed shut. The Lexus didn't move. Code enforcement taped a red notice on her door. Greg told me she was going to stay with her sister for a while, and looked like a man trying to make peace with gravity. I told him I hoped she found somewhere calm. We put a hedge along the property line, a green curtain between acts, and the street softened. The group chat stopped buzzing months later. A young couple moved in and hung string lights and asked if solar was worth it. I said yes, and keep your permits in a tidy folder, because tidy folders can save your life sometimes. I catch myself watching the hedge at night, listening for a hum that isn't there. Once the power flickered and reset my microwave clock, and my stomach dropped. Then I laughed, because not everything is a conspiracy. Sometimes the grid burps and your popcorn burns. A week after the hearing, I found an unmarked envelope under my mat, with one line in careful script. I wanted control, you wanted order. It didn't say I'm sorry, and it didn't say I'm not. I slid it into the binder next to the stamp, because that's where it belongs. If you're wondering where community ends and control begins, you're not alone. I didn't win by yelling louder or playing mad scientist. I won by writing everything down, knowing the rules better than the person who weaponized them, staying boring enough to be credible and steady enough to be believed. You know what I mean? Peace isn't a parade. It's a hedge, a clean permit, a neighbor who stops emailing at midnight, and a board that finally reads its own book. Now I want to hear you. Was the board right to strip a neighbor's vote for a year? Should vandalism on a quiet street hit as hard as vandalism anywhere else? Where's the line between safety and control? Drop your take in the comments, argue it out. Tell me your HOA nightmare or your best neighbor comeback. And if you want more real stories like this, hit subscribe, because the current always finds a path. The question is whether we ground it in respect or let it arc across the places we're supposed to share.